All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program. You know we're talking Johnny Cuba. Pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba. Get Week 9 in the NFL started. You go to johnnycuba.us. Use the Johnny Locator. You find the nearest location to you. Make sure you always drink responsibly. And don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, say tranquilo. Our pal, of course, is CBS Sports Fantasy Football expert Jamey Eisenberg. We get Week 9 underway tonight. Texans, Jets. Before that, give me some thoughts on the Dolphins from last week. Tua returns. Was it what we like? I think it was probably best case scenario. The offense looked pretty good.
Offense looked much better. You like to see a little bit more production from the receivers. Obviously, Tyreek Hill did not have the big breakout game I was hoping to see, and Jalen Waddle was largely disappointing again. You like to see a few more targets for him. But Devon Achane looked fantastic. Raheem Mostert gets the 2 touchdowns. Tua, not a huge fantasy day, but, at least you saw signs of encouragement, mostly just because he's on the field. But I think we know what they're capable of. And so you want to see, one of these 40-point games where everybody's eating, and hopefully that's coming soon.
Jamey, who's the best team in the NFL?
It's hard not to say the Chiefs. I know they don't look pretty in how they're getting it done, but undefeated is undefeated. Defense is fantastic. Run game has been really strong. And I think at least last week we saw some signs that Mahomes, when he has to, put up some numbers, he can still put up some numbers. It's still not the, 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yard season that we're seeing. And hopefully DeAndre Hopkins and maybe a healthy Juju Smith-Schuster can change that. But, it's hard to overlook undefeated.
Are you finding, for fantasy football owners who have Patrick Mahomes, are you finding their teams are like in last place? Because Mahomes is probably like, what, a second-round pick in most fantasy drafts?
I don't know if he was drafted that high. I think his average draft position probably around 3. But yes, I don't know if last place. I have Mahomes in 2 leagues, and I just haven't been playing him. My teams are okay. So it's not exactly like you can't find other options at that position. So you can pivot now to Matthew Stafford. Bo Nix was somebody that you can use when the matchup is right. He's had a little bit of a hot streak, but Jared Goff was drafted as a backup quarterback. He's been serviceable. You might have paired Mahomes with somebody, just take a flyer on a Caleb Williams or a Jane Daniels, and it was just easy to pivot to one of the rookies. So that's an easy position to sort of overcome. Obviously, you would have liked to see Mahomes being Mahomes. And this is an interesting week. Everybody has success against the Bucs. So we'll see if Mahomes can follow suit. He's not ranked as a number 1 quarterback for me, but he's just outside of it, and he's the highest ranked that he's been in about a month.
All right, let's get to the games here. Texans, Jets tonight. What do you got? And specifically, Davante Adams, what have been your thoughts with him?
At some point, he's going to have a breakout game, and if you're looking at it just from the sample size of what we have, 2 games, then let's say going into, what happens after tonight, it might not be a bad idea to try and trade him afterwards because his name will still carry some recognition. And you see the way that the Jets are operating, at least in the first 2 games, where Garrett Wilson is still continuing to, get a lot of targets. Last week's game was a little weird just because he got the top cornerback for the Patriots, Adams did, which is understandable. Clearly he still carries the resume of being a Hall of Famer. So Christian Gonzalez was following him. Garrett Wilson was getting the lighter load and, getting more opportunities. The Texans don't necessarily do the same type of things that the Patriots did. So we'll see if, Adams gets a, bigger target share and is able to produce. Now, if he has another bad game, you're not dropping Davante Adams, but you're certainly not starting him. So we'll see how this, game goes. Texans are a little bit beat up. So we'll see who actually starts for them. Jimmy Ward, for example, one of their members of their secondary, if he plays. And then for the Texans, they're just so beat up right now offensively. You lose Stephon Diggs with Nico Collins still out. CJ Stroud is another guy, another quarterback who was drafted as basically a must-start guy coming off the amazing rookie season that he had. And he's been very underwhelming. When Joe Mixon's played, his numbers have gone down. But then you take away Nico Collins, you take away Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell is just not the type of receiver yet that's going to carry an offense. So CJ Stroud is barely inside my top 24, which is the only quarterback rankings that you see, 24 guys. Lowest that he's ever been really since, we started ranking him last year.
All right, let's look at the Dolphins. Dolphins are at Buffalo this Sunday at 1 p.m. What do we got?
I mean, look, you're starting Tyreek Hill. You're starting Devon Achane, and I think that's where it ends. Raheem Mostert is a flex play. Jalen Waddle is a flex play. The numbers just aren't great. Waddle in his last 5 games, 3 of them have been very disappointing. This is against the Bills. Last 5 games against Buffalo, 3 of them have been disappointing. Understanding that, Tua has left 2 of those, with concussion situations. So hopefully they start to connect at a little bit better pace. Tyreek just has too much upside to ever put on the bench, even when he was dealing with the backup quarterbacks. And then Devon Achane has just been absolutely a stud in the passing game with Tua. It's another strong game where he was heavily targeted. I think 6+ catches in every game Tua has been on the field, caught a touchdown, 10 carries, you'd like to see a little bit more work for him if you're, Devon Achane manager, but you'll take, the 15 plus total touches. And for Raheem Mostert, I hope he doesn't fall into a touchdown or a bust type of scenario. But, when you're getting 2 touchdowns after a year where he scored 18 on the ground, you kind of look at it and say, okay, we know what the Dolphins are going to do when they get near the goal line. They're going to give him an opportunity to score. So that's why he's a little more of a flex play than a must-start guy. And really the way to beat the Bills has been to run on them. So we'll see if the Dolphins are able to lean on both their backs here. But Tua's history against Buffalo is bad. Even the games that he's finished, he just hasn't had success. So it's not exactly like you could say must-start quarterback right now.
All right, let's look at a couple of the interesting situations this weekend. Chargers and Browns. What do you make of Nick Chubb at this point? And what does Jameis Winston do for that offense?
I mean, clearly Jameis gives them a chance to be more successful. Deshaun Watson was a little shaky in the pocket. Granted, it's hard to really compare because Jameis had, the almost fully healthy offensive line for the Browns, and Deshaun Watson was dealing with a patchwork group. But I mean, you know what Jameis is. He's going to, take some chances. He's going to give you a chance to win for your receivers. He's also going to throw some turnovers because he's one of those quarterbacks that likes to throw into tight windows and throw into coverage, and he's going to make mistakes. But that's why we love him for fantasy, because he's going to give you the opportunity to get a 300-yard game. He's going to give you the opportunity to get multiple touchdowns. You just have to deal with the penalties and the turnovers, penalties for your fantasy lineup. But that's what, makes him great for fantasy managers. So Cedric Tillman's had 2 great games since Amari Cooper's been off the field. You definitely want to roster him. Depends if you need him for this week. So for example, I have one team where I lost both Stephon Diggs and Chris Godwin in the last 2 weeks. I'm starting Cedric Tillman this week because it's a 3-receiver league. But you'd like to see at least one more game against the Chargers, who have a really good defense. Really what I look for with Jameis is they play the Chargers week, tough matchup, bye next week. Then they get the Saints in week 11 when we have a lot of teams on bye. I love that revenge game narrative, facing his former team with the Saints. So I think he's going to light up that defense because it's not a great defense. So if you're looking ahead from a quarterback perspective, you're looking there. In terms of Nick Chubb, look, tough situation for him coming off the injury. It was going to be a little bit of a ramp-up period. This is a tough matchup, but after the bye, hopefully he gets going.
How about the Jaguars and Eagles? Are the Eagles is it safe to say that offense is back now?
It seems that way, and the nice thing for Devontae Smith managers, anytime somebody's been missing, whether it was A.J. Brown or now Dallas Goedert, he stepped up in a big way. And so didn't have a great game 2 games ago, bounces back last week with a huge touchdown. Obviously must start receiver no matter what, but his numbers just get that much better whenever somebody's missing, and Goddard most likely not going to play. But yes, now we're starting to see what this Eagles offense can do. It's going to be interesting to see, how far they go if they, have a serious playoff run, what they do with their coaching situation. But Saquon's amazing. Hurts is back to being Hurts, and the receivers are just, locked in, ready to go.
Top quarterbacks this week, Jamey, or whom?
Jalen Hurts is up there. Josh Allen's up there. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, hard to get away from him. And Jayden Daniels. Those are my top 4 guys.
And how about running backs?
It's a great week for running backs, at the top. Alvin Kamara's sort of been up and down for me, just looking at the quarterback situation for the Saints and some of the matchups. But now he has arguably the best matchup and his quarterback back. So he's number 1. Saquon Barkley's going to kind of live in the top 3 for the majority of the season. 3 for me this week is Devon Achane, again, with the matchup and his work in the passing game. It's a little bit different depending on format because Derrick Henry in non-PPR would be 3rd, but in full PPR, Achane just with his receptions is 3rd. And then Derrick Henry, obviously, it's hard to get away from what he's done.
Wide receivers?
A.J. Brown is up there. Jamar Chase is up there. Justin Jefferson's up there. It's kind of just, it's easy to do the wide receiver rankings. Just kind of just put those names at the top.
Guys who are good. Play the guys who are good.
Yeah, and CeeDee Lamb, it's nice to see him bounce back last week against the 49ers. Not that he's been having a down season, but, the holdout and the sort of the sluggish start. I hope the Cowboys offense gets going. This could be a fun game between the Cowboys and the Falcons this week.
And what injury situations do we need to keep an eye on today at practice?
You got 2 concussions that we're looking at. Tyrone Tracy, we'll see what his status is for the Giants. And then Drake May, look, he's had a nice season so far in the 2 starts that he made. Got concussed last week when he was off to a good start against the Jets. So it'll be fun to see what he's able to do in a good matchup against the Titans. Jordan Love's a huge one because if he's not there, it's almost the receivers are unplayable with Malik Willis. If Love is there, potential shootout with the Lions. So you want to see that. Jared Goff tweaked his ankle in practice yesterday. I don't think it's anything serious, but that's something you want to keep an eye on there. Trying to think, it's been, I don't want to jinx it. The running back position hasn't exactly been banged up the last couple of weeks. Like when I do the waiver wire story every week, it's like the running backs suck, which we like, because we don't want to see a lot of good, options on the waiver wire. Receiver, I don't think there's a lot of significant injuries that we're looking at. The receiver position has just been beat up with a lot of long-term injuries. Tight end, it's Dallas Goedert, and we'll see if TJ Hawkinson is going to be able to play. Oh, there's one at running back. Jonathan Brooks, he's eligible to return this week and got into full practice on Wednesday. That'll be an interesting situation to see what the Panthers do if they decide to go with the rookie who they drafted, who's, got a huge future, or Chuba Hubbard, who's gotten off to a great start.
Great job, Jamey. Tell everybody how they can hear you leading up to tonight's game and throughout the weekend.
Yeah, CBSSports.com, CBS Sports HQ. It's our 24-hour streaming network, not just for fantasy football, but for all sports. If you like the old school Sports Center style, we kind of mimic that and, give you just highlights and a lot of just analysis that's not going to be a lot of talking, just more based on what happened during the games. And then you can certainly check out our Fantasy Football Today podcast, wherever podcasts are found. You can find it on YouTube as well.
Great job, Jamey. Thank you, pal. We'll talk next week.
Appreciate it. Thank you.